The hut began to shake. Harry and Dudley stood up abruptly, their gaze fixed on the door. Uncle Vernon burst into the room with a rifle in his hand, shouting to warn the person outside. Suddenly, the door was ripped off its hinges and fell to the floor. A giant appeared in the doorway. He squeezed inside, picked up the door and put it back in place, and asked the Dursley family if they had a cup of tea to offer him. Afterward, he went to sit on the couch where Dudley had been sleeping. He had hidden behind his mother, who had taken refuge behind her husband. Uncle Vernon, however, mustered up the courage to point his shotgun at the giant and ordered him to leave. The giant snatched the rifle from his hands, tied the barrel in a knot and threw it into the corner of the room. Then, he turned to Harry. Much to his surprise, he pulled a large chocolate cake out of his coat and wished him a happy birthday. Then, he proceeded to create a roaring fire in the fireplace, made himself some tea, and grilled some sausages to give to Harry. Finally, he introduced himself. His name was Rubeus Hagrid, keeper of keys and grounds at Hogwarts. Harry asked him what Hogwarts was, and Hagrid began to get very angry with the Dursleys. It seemed that Harry knew nothing about Hogwarts, about his parents' world, which was also his own. Hagrid revealed that Harry's parents were famous, and that he too was a famous person. He told him that he didn't even know who he was, and that made him even angrier at the Dursleys. But Uncle Vernon spoke up and ordered Hagrid to say anything. Hagrid turned to Harry and revealed that he was a wizard. A silence fell over the room, and Hagrid took the opportunity to give Harry his letter, which granted him admission to Hogwarts, School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. While Harry had 1,000 questions swirling in his head, Hagrid pulled an owl out of his coat and wrote a note on a piece of parchment to confirm his mission for Harry Potter, before throwing the bird outside with the letter. Afterward, Uncle Vernon, who was referred to as a muggle by Hagrid, a word used to describe someone without magical powers, intervened and refused to let Harry leave, citing that when they had taken him in, he and Petunia had sworn to put an end to all this wizard nonsense. That's when Harry got angry. The Dursleys had known all along. Petunia explained that her own little sister had received a similar letter to Harry's and had also gone to that school. Everyone was proud to have a witch in the family, but Petunia was the only one who considered her like a monster. And finally, Lily met this Potter, and Harry was born. Petunia knew that Harry would be just as strange as them, and the Dursleys inherited him after his parents' murder. His parents' murder? The Dursleys had always claimed that Lily and James Potter had died in a car crash. Hagrid got even angrier, finding it scandalous that Harry Potter didn't know his own history, while every child in the wizarding world knew his name. But why? Harry asked Hagrid why he was famous, what had happened. Hagrid wondered if he was the right person to tell him, but Harry needed to know his story. It all began because of a person named Voldemort. Hagrid had difficulty saying his name. It inspired fear, and most wizards didn't pronounce it. It was 20 years ago, a dark time, no one could be trusted. Voldemort began recruiting devotees, some out of fear and others for power, because he had powers. He spread his influence by taking control of others, and those who resisted were killed. But he had never dared to attack Hogwarts. It was perhaps the only place where you were safe, with Dumbledore in charge. Lily and James Potter were excellent wizards. Did Voldemort try to recruit them? Either he couldn't convince them, or he simply wanted to get rid of them. But 10 years ago, on Halloween night, Voldemort had gone to the village where Harry lived with his parents and murdered Lily and James Potter, before turning on Harry, who was just 1 year old. But that's the mystery. Why didn't he succeed? The scar on Harry's forehead was not an ordinary scar. It was the mark of the evil spell he had cast against him, a spell so powerful that it had killed his parents and destroyed his home. That's why Harry Potter was famous. He had survived as a baby, when Voldemort had killed hundreds of powerful wizards before him, without any difficulty. Harry had a strange feeling, a painful one. As Hagrid told him his story, Harry heard a cruel and icy laugh, followed by a flash of green light. When Hagrid confessed that he had taken him out of his ruined house to bring him to the Dursleys, Uncle Vernon began to criticize Lily and James Potter. Hagrid leaped at Uncle Vernon, pulling a pink umbrella out of his coat and pointing it at him, and he immediately quieted down. But Harry wondered, what happened to Voldemort? Was he dead? Hagrid didn't believe it. He thought Voldemort was still alive, but weakened. with no power left. But in any case, he had disappeared thanks to Harry, which added to his reputation. Harry found it hard to believe. He, Harry Potter, was a famous person? All these stories about Hogwarts and wizards seemed too good to be true. But Hagrid laughed and asked him if anything strange had ever happened when he was angry or scared. Harry thought about it. Hagrid was right. It explained a lot of things, like how his hair had grown back overnight after Aunt Petunia had shaved his head, or how he had ended up on the roof on the school kitchens while being chased by Dudley's gang. Uncle Vernon didn't want to give up and categorically refused to let Harry go. He made the grave mistake of insulting Albus Dumbledore. That was the last straw for Hagrid. He took out his umbrella again and pointed it at Dudley. A flash of purple light appeared, and Dudley ended up with a small curly pig's tail poking through his pyjama. Panicked, Uncle Vernon grabbed his son and his wife and locked themselves in the bedroom. Hagrid seemed to regret his act. He confided in Harry that he had been a student at Hogwarts himself, but had been expelled in his third year. Normally, he wasn't supposed to do magic anymore. After this conversation, Hagrid and Harry went to bed. A big day awaited them the next day.